What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back to a new review. For today I have one of the most affordable smartphones with the 18:9 screen ratio. This one right here, it's called the M-Horse Pure One and it costs $99 at the time of this review. For its price, the phone looks very good in my opinion. So first of all, we have a 5.7-inch screen, we have a somewhat smaller chin and forehead, we have a metallic frame, and we also have a super shiny plastic back. And guess what, on the back we have two cameras and we even have a fingerprint scanner. And since we are talking about cameras, well, we even have two more cameras on the front of the device, so all that for $99. And moving on to the phone specifications, we have the MediaTek 6737 CPU, which is a quad-core CPU. We have 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of internal storage, and the device is running Android 7. Now, out of that 32 gigs of internal storage, we only have about 26 gigs left, but luckily you can install an SD card as internal storage. The 5.7 inch is an IPS panel with a resolution of 1440 by 720, so definitely not the sharpest screen out there. However, the colors are nice and vibrant and the viewing angles are also great. The screen sensitivity is great as well, and the screen can register up to 5 touches in the same time. However, the screen doesn't get that bright, so whenever you're gonna go outside, it's gonna be a bit difficult to actually see the screen. The navigation buttons are sitting at the bottom of the screen and they can also be moved around from the software, and all the way at the top you're gonna find two cameras. So we have a 5 megapixel camera and a 2 megapixel camera. Now, like most phones that we've seen from China, the second camera is useless on the front and on the back, so the phone doesn't have edge detection, therefore it basically makes a circle in the middle and everything outside of that circle it's blurred out. So the DSLR effect or the bokeh effect from this phone it's unusable basically. However, leaving that second camera aside, if you actually take pictures with the 5 megapixel camera on the front of this device, the pictures turn out quite good, mostly if you have plenty of light. As soon as you don't have enough light, they become kind of grainy and blurry. And since we are talking about pictures and cameras, we might as well talk about the cameras on the back of this device. So we have a 8 and a 2 megapixel cameras, but as I said earlier, the second camera is absolutely useless. Now, if you're just gonna take pictures with the 8 megapixel sensor, well, the pictures turn out very good in fact. If you have plenty of light, the pictures are very sharp and very detailed and the colors are very nice and vibrant, so you wouldn't say that this is a $99 phone. Now, we even have an HDR mode and the HDR mode works okay, not the best that I've seen, but definitely not the worst that I've seen either. As for the pictures taken in low light, well, they're not as crispy as the ones taken in daylight. However, for a phone that costs $99, I think they're more than appropriate. And since we are still on the back of the phone, we even have a fingerprint scanner there. However, the positioning of the fingerprint scanner is not the best. So this is the exact same position that we've seen for the Samsung Galaxy S8, which, as we all know, it's not the greatest. The fingerprint scanner works good, it's very accurate, but as we've seen in the past, not the fastest. So it takes about a second after you actually press the fingerprint scanner till the screen unlocks. But overall, the fingerprint scanner works good. As I mentioned at the beginning, the phone's frame is made out of metal, and yes, it does look good and it feels very good to touch as well. However, the power button and the volume keys are sitting on the left hand side, so not on the right hand side where they're easier to access. So it's a bit awkward to actually press that power button whenever you pick up the phone, and I wish the buttons would have been on the other side. But leaving those aside, on the right hand side we are gonna find a slot for the SIM card, and this phone can take either two SIM cards or a SIM card and an SSD card. And all the way at the top you're gonna find a 3.5mm audio jack. The sound quality from that 3.5mm audio jack, it's decent, but I wish it would get a bit louder because it's not as loud as I've heard in the past. And moving all the way to the bottom of the device, there we have the speaker, we also have a micro USB charging port and the microphone. The phone supports OTG and MediaTek's fast charging technology, so charging the phone from 0 to 100 is done in about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So this phone has a 4380 mAh battery inside, and that's quite a large battery, and I was actually expecting better battery life from it. So I was able to go for about a day and a half without charging the phone, and out of that about 6 hours of screen on time, which is not the best considering that battery size. Performance-wise, as we all know, that MediaTek 6737 is an entry-level CPU, therefore the scores that we're gonna get on the Antutu benchmark and the Geekbench 4 aren't that high, but they're very normal for that CPU. Luckily, this phone is using a launcher that's very close to stock Android, so there is nothing holding the phone back, so even though we don't have the fastest CPU out there, the phone still feels kind of speedy. You're mostly gonna feel that you have a slower CPU whenever you're opening apps, because loading apps takes longer than it does on a much more expensive device, but if you get past that, the phone does perform quite well once the apps are loaded. You're still gonna be able to play games on this phone, however it will take a bit longer to actually load the games, and some games may actually skip a few frames here and there, and some games may actually lag, depending on what games you download and what your expectations are, of course, but overall you can still play games on this. Moving on to the GPS unit inside this phone, well, it works great and better than I was expecting, so it only takes a couple of seconds to find your location, and once your location is found it doesn't seem to lose it. As for sensors, well, we don't really have that many sensors, and of course we don't have a gyroscope. For connectivity, the phone can connect to 4G networks. We also have dual band Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 5.0, which is not something that we see every day. Now the speaker on top here doesn't get extremely loud, so you may have trouble listening to the other person if you are in a noisy environment. As for the speeds over Wi-Fi and the 4G networks, well, they're appropriate for a phone in this price range. And it's time to conclude this video. So for about $100, this phone offers amazing value, and on top of that it does look very cool. Now keep in mind that the back it's made out of plastic, so it will get scratched very easily if you don't use a case, but luckily there is a case that comes in the box. But other than that, the phone does perform quite well for $100. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.